Hey everyone, welcome into This is the Bet. This is a going to be a game preview for the Utah Utes going to Waco, Texas to play the Baylor. Tanner, what are your thoughts on this game? We'll just jump right into it. You've we've both done a little bit of research, a little bit of studying on this one. What are your thoughts about this one? You did an early preview, so you already said some of what you thought, but go ahead and just expound on a little bit what you
Yeah,
think.
so I think this is an exciting game, especially for Utah fans. It's a chance to go down and beat, that a Baylor team that I still feel can be a respected Baylor team. It's not, this loss doesn't put them totally out of contention to have a bowl game bid. I just think for Utah, there's all the upside of coming in here and keeping on a roll. I think there's pressure on Baylor to perform to show that week one was just a fluke. So I think all around it'll be an exciting game and one people can look forward to watching.
Yeah, I agree with you. Baylor has a lot to prove, especially after week one. Just dropping that game to Texas State 42-31. Not the way they wanted to start their season, not the way we thought their season would start for sure. And just kind of about Baylor real quick. This is kind of the big news is their quarterback Blake Shapen, kind of their starter from last year, experienced quarterback. He's now going to be out at least 2 to 3 weeks with an MCL injury that happened in the Texas State game. Do you think this impacts Baylor quite a bit in this game? And honestly, my initial thoughts are I'm surprised that the spread's not bigger. But what
Yes,
do you
and
think?
and yeah, going into that with where the spread is at, I'm thinking it's because yes, Blake Sharpen is going to be out, right? Sorry, I put Sharpen. I think it's Shapen.
Shapen,
I'll have
Shapen,
to
yeah.
check the Shapen. I added that extra R on there, but Blake Shapen is out. They're also without a starting safety. Was another injury, and I put in my notes expect a major jump being the backup. This is a quarterback that only had 6 completions at Mississippi State. Uh, Trying to see did he get enough reps over there? He was practicing with the team, but game time reps, 6 completions. I think where this line stayed around this 6.5, 7 is because Cam Rising is expected not to play. And I think
Yep.
that kind of balances it out of two starting quarterbacks out. Now, I think if I were the odds makers, and this is probably why I am not an odds maker, I think Utah has the advantage in this game with what we saw with Florida and how they had the dual threat with the quarterbacks. I see them carrying this over and having great success. Now, given there are still 8 of the 10 starting players injured for Florida, and Kyle Whittingham said this week that these guys are day to day, and he's just hoping to get one or two back by game day. So
Hmm.
that's another thing to look into is this Utah team, are they going to get some of their bigger stars back, or are they going to be with the same crew they had against Florida, which wasn't a bad crew, which put up a good performance. And so that's why I think it's kind of bouncing around that 6.5 is because they look at the two quarterbacks being out. So
Yeah. This is a game that I think both teams kind of had circled on the schedule coming into the year. Utah kind of thinking this is kind of a prove it game for them, but after last week with Baylor losing to Texas State, I think there's a little bit of a relax. I don't know. They can take a deep breath knowing that it might not be the tough game they thought it would be, especially with Blake Shapen being out. Now that doesn't mean they can sit back and take it easy. I was looking into the Baylor backup Sawyer Robertson. He came into the game late last week. He threw 12 passes, completed 6 of them, threw for about 100 yards, but threw an interception as well. No touchdowns. So there's a lack of experience there for him, like you mentioned at Mississippi State. Is that what Missouri State, Mississippi
it
State?
was I thought it was Mississippi State when I was
Yeah,
looking it up.
yeah. I can double check this real quick so we got it right. Looks like he was.
And it was he
Yeah.
had six. It was 6 completions. I think he attempted 11
Yep.
passes or
Mississippi
something.
State.
And so he played some minutes, but I think they were end of game minutes. However much value you put on those.
Yeah, and here's another thing where I think we're both kind of on the same page. Utah has the advantage in this game. Spreads at 7.5. I can pull up kind of this is the kind of the betting lines here. I think Utah's defensive line last week really showed out, but they were also missing a couple starters on the defensive line, which you would not have known just watching that game. But they expect to maybe get one or two of those guys back. Cam Rising, like we've mentioned, unlikely to start, but he's practicing. His knee is. They say it's stable and he's practicing, but they're kind of just going to ease him into the game, you know, game mode. But I think Utah also has the advantage here because they played and prepared for Florida with their backup quarterbacks, whereas Baylor, this is kind of, I don't know, this is the first week for them being able to prepare their backup to start. And I think Utah has two very capable backup quarterbacks. Have you heard anything? Do you know if they're both going to play or if they're going to roll with one of them? Have you seen anything? I haven't seen
That's a
anything
good
on that.
question. I'd assume they'd go with what they did against Florida. Um, yeah, I don't, because Barnes came in and we didn't really see Johnson until later. Um, but I felt the same way as you in my notes. I put, we saw what Barnes and Johnson can do and how they'd already been leaning towards that, knowing Rising was not going to enter those games, where this is a gut punch for Baylor. This is,
Yeah.
well, I wouldn't say a total. It comes at a bad time playing Utah. If it's 2 to 3 weeks, then it's not a season ending. So I'll take that back. It's not a gut punch. It's a big blow at a very bad time when you're playing this Utah team. So
Yeah, I think if Blake Shapen was going to be playing this game, this spread's a little closer. But without him, I feel like this spread should be even further than it was. And I've kind of mentioned that. But just looking at these lines here, Utah touchdown, about a touchdown, 7.5 points, over under at 47.5. Last week against Florida, they put up 24 points. Florida scored 11, so that was 35 total points. Defense really showed out in that game. As far as the over-under goes for you, which way do you see this going? I have my initial thoughts are that Baylor's not going to score much. First of all, I can count on Utah's defensive line getting pressure on the quarterback. The quarterback being somebody who's not as experienced. So getting to the quarterback, somebody who's not experienced can get anxious in the pocket, get rushed a little bit, make mistakes, throw some interceptions. I think Baylor's really going to struggle to score in this game. And so I'm actually thinking it's going to be on the under side on this one. Similar score to what we saw last week against Florida, but maybe Utah puts up a few more points or Baylor scores a couple touchdowns. What are your thoughts on that line?
yeah, so I'm actually really excited about seeing it at the 47.5. I went into this video doing my research, seeing a line that was at 51.5. So that's not a big drop, but a drop nonetheless. This is a Baylor team that let Texas State put up 42 points. Utah scored 24 in their home opener. Now, I'll throw up some things I've seen. Baylor is 9-4, and 3-3 is the home team for the over hitting. So 9-4 with the over, 3-3 as the home team. Utah 8-6 and on the over under, 3-3 as a road team. So we're seeing more of those overs hitting, and so if this goes how I expect it, I'm looking for the over. 50 points scared me. Anything over 50 scared me, but the reason I have it going more towards the over is this is a Utah team that allowed 333 passing yards against that Florida team. Excuse me. And so the backup, yes, it's a backup quarterback for Baylor. But if they follow their air attack that they did against Texas State, which they won't be able to get as many yards, but they put up 416 against Texas State. Now, that's a Texas State defense. How good are they? Up for debate. But they're going to be trying to go to the air, and Utah letting 333 against Florida. I could see this being, if the quarterback, well, he's a backup at Baylor, so he's got some talent. They saw something in him. If this goes how I see it, I see it hitting the over. Utah scoring a lot of points, but Baylor also putting up. I don't think the game will be close. So I think Utah covers by quite a bit. And that
Okay.
over actually hitting over that 47.5.
Okay, so we'll get into maybe a score prediction later, but
Yes.
we'll talk about the spread first. I already said I'm taking the under on this one. The main reason being that Blake Shapen is out and the backup quarterback is in for Baylor, and I think they put 31 points up on Texas State. Texas State defense isn't Utah defense. And so that's kind of the reasons why I have the under on this one. But I see your reasoning as well, and it's good to disagree, and we'll see who's right, because that's always fun to come back at the end and see who is right.
Yes.
So going to the spread, we have 7.5. I put the money line here as well just for fun, but 7.5. I think you mentioned you have a hot take about this, so maybe let's get into that on the spread.
Yeah, I don't know. For Utah fans, it won't be a hot take. Maybe for other people watching, it will be my hot take, right? I'm buying it up to 9, maybe 10. I see Utah winning this by more, way more than 7. Well, I won't say way more. I see them winning it by more than 7, right? If I can find it to buy it up to 9 and it looks right, I'm taking that, because this is easily a Utah team that can go into Waco and win by 14. And why not 21? Why not give them the old Whittingham no breaks until the very end of the game?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite Whittingham stories is when they were playing, it was Wyoming. I think it was Wyoming, and they go for an onside kick towards the end of the game, and he says it was an offensive strategy to not give him momentum or something, and the Wyoming coach flips him the double bird.
Yeah.
Whittingham's not gonna. He gets his players up, and he's not gonna slow down. We've seen him put the beating on BYU before, and no breaks. Right now, that's a rivalry game, but it's a coach that he'll get him up, and I see him winning, handling this game. So
you're seeing like a no breaks blowout. Utah wins. You're not super confident, but you'll buy up to 9, knowing that they're going to win by at least 10, kind of thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and I'm a little more of a believer in the Utes this year than what the odds kind of show, and so I think Baylor will score points, and that's why I see the over hitting a lot easier, is because I see it going explosive for Utah. Points scored by big plays for Baylor, and then hitting that over.
So just pulling this up, if you bought down to 9, you're looking at it right here, minus 103. But if you were willing to go to 10 here, then there's a little more juice.
Then we're into the positive, which is, yeah.
So is that something you consider?
Yeah. And at that point, you might as well go up to, how high do you go?
What, 10 and a half, I guess?
How high do you go? 10.5 is probably right where you'd put it.
See, if it goes the way I think it's going to go, like 14, That's what I think the line should be.
Are you thinking 17 points or more?
Yeah, sort of.
For kind of victory?
Yeah, so my thoughts on the spread are Utah, they covered last week against Florida. Baylor failed to cover last week. This is a Baylor home game, so I think that is, something to factor in here. But I think Utah really is going to come out, dominate defensively. I think the offense is going to be okay, but I don't think it's going to be explosive. I think they're going to put up somewhere in the 30s for points, but we can go into the score predictions on that. But I just see Utah covering this game, and I see it being by quite a bit. And I agree with you there. Just with Blake Shapen being out, even though Cam Rising is not going to be playing this week, the backups show they were capable. So score prediction from you, Tanner. We know you're going over 47.5 points. We know you got Utah winning by 9 at least. So what's your score prediction for this game?
Great question. I could see the Utes putting up 31. Let's see, probably more. Let's see. No, 31's a good number. And then probably, well, I got to get them to cover that 14. Oh, I'm bad with score predictions. Let's hear yours.
Okay, well, yeah, let me go first. So here's the score I have in my mind is Utah 34, Baylor 10. So that's 44 total points. So it's under. It's kind of a bad performance from Baylor on offense, but it also pretty good performance from Utah. Putting up 30 points, 34 points isn't bad. And they win by 24, and they go home from Waco happy. They're 2-0. They're ranked, I think, 12th or 11th in the nation right now, and hopefully they're trying to crack the top 10. So knowing my score prediction is 34-10, it's got the under, it's got Utah covering. What are your thoughts on this game, score wise?
Great question. Let's see. I'm just doing some math here, trying to put together something that sounds reasonable and logical. Right? If I get Baylor 14 points,
Yeah.
I give them 2 explosive touchdowns, one coming early in the game, another later, but the Utes running away with it. Even 31-14 only gives me 45, right? And
Yeah.
that does not go over 47. But I don't know if I see, let's just say 31-17, right?
Yeah.
That hits the over barely. That's
14-point
48,
win.
right? And I think that's
Yep.
why the odd makers have it right there. How much do you see Utah running it up is what they're saying. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I got it at, is that 31-17 probably. Yeah.
Cool.
That's what I'm going with.
No, I like that, and I think we both. I don't know. I just feel good about this game. I'll be very surprised if Utah loses. Maybe it will be closer than we think. Maybe the Baylor, maybe Sawyer, the backup quarterback for Baylor, maybe he proves us wrong. Maybe he comes after a week of preparation, he comes ready. But another thing to keep in mind is Utah has extra rest because they played on a Thursday. So that's 2 more days to rest and be ready for this game, even with them traveling out there. I think the extra rest, getting maybe a couple guys back, just the talent they have and the discipline. Kyle Whittingham is the better coach in this game, I think. So I just see Utah winning. Any other thoughts on this matchup? We can look at props or something if you'd like, but
No, I think we're good on this one. I don't think I know any of the quarterbacks good enough to put props.
yeah,
I mean, one that people will probably look into a lot is an under on Sawyer Robertson.
yeah.
I wonder what they have his at.
See if I can even find
And
it.
then another interesting one would be probably rush yards on Johnson if they have it. That'll probably be a hot topic, seeing that he was such a contributing factor.
Yeah, no player props here yet, but
Okay. If I were the odds makers, I'd throw one out for Johnson because there's excitement around him in the Utah community. Get some people to bite on that. And then I'd put one out for Sawyer Robertson, something that is just tempting to take his under because he's
yeah,
so
it's a question mark for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I have one more question or one more thing to discuss is they're going to play we think they're going to play both quarterbacks, Barnes and Johnson. Do you think it's going to be a hey, let's give them every other drive, kind of like they did against Florida, or is it going to be okay, let's see what works better, like who's moving the ball better and then stick with them the rest of the game?
Yeah, it's really
Do you
interesting.
think it
Couldn't tell you. That's a great question. I'd love to see what they're doing in the spring if they had been planning for this the whole time. Because I expressed to you that what it looked like to me is they were possibly planning to throw Johnson in with Cam come season time. Little balance
yeah.
the not really balance the workload. I'd see Cam taking way more snaps, but running situations giving it to Johnson. But I thought we saw Johnson a lot more than I thought with his running, but not passing as much. In
Yeah.
this game against Baylor, my thought would be they're going to do very similar, and we'll see both. Yeah, because they'll need Barnes to throw. I didn't see Johnson throwing it very well.
No,
So
he had a couple close calls as well. He almost threw a pick,
yeah,
but he ran the ball really well. So
yeah, incredible.
I just wonder, yeah, I wonder if at halftime if Johnson's moving the ball well, if they say, "Hey, you're the guy the rest of the half. Let's go get the win," or if they just say, "Hey, what we're doing is working." If they have the lead at half and they just say, "Hey, we're just going to keep switching every other drive," and it could work for them. I could see both quarterbacks having a couple touchdowns.
Yeah,
So that should be an exciting game. I think this was a little bit of a deeper dive from the preview you did, but
yeah,
I think hopefully this content's valuable for you guys. And if you watch this far, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We're slowly growing, and we're just gonna keep making videos and doing previews. And if you like the Utah ones, comment because we can keep doing Utah previews every week if people are watching.
it's a team I feel like I know better because they've broken my heart so many times since I was a kid. Um, and maybe I'm a lot nicer to Utah now because BYU won their last matchup, and so I got a little nicer feelings towards the Utes. But
Yeah.
um, I am a fan of football, so I watch the Utes. I know that may be a sin to some BYU fans, but
Yep.
I enjoy watching good football, and the Utes do produce good football year in, year out. So I wish them all the best down in Waco. Um, but when we play them come whenever in the Big 12,
Yep.
we'll see how those
Next year, maybe.
sentiments are.
No, yeah, we're not Utah haters, but we just we can recognize when a team is good, and Utah's a talented team, and they have a high potential this year, I think. So getting the win against Baylor is the next step, but they have a tough Pac-12 schedule, so that will be the real test playing teams like Oregon, and so
Yeah, but I'd agree with you. Just like and subscribe. We'd love to keep growing it, and it's something we love. So thank you to all who have subscribed and who will subscribe. And we'll catch you on the next episode of This Is the Bet.
yeah. See you guys.
See ya.